So, the Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body thereof have made an update, which was on the actual line of the previous show called Jude's warning to the churches, Jude's letter. And if you recall, what I was actually discussing there was about the fact that, as a mention, I talked about how the Jehovah's Witnesses have their own version of Christ, which is not the real one. And hence why he came back in 1928 or something. And that's the cult version of Christ. And that's who they actually render their worship to. So in conversions, with that whole main deception, that the Jehovah's Witnesses have already stated that they've come up with a lot of changes and they're transitioning towards Catholicism and staying on that theme. This time around, they've seemed that they've pretty much gone the route of saying that, everyone is now free and welcome to study whatever they want, when they used to be so against higher education. So with me personally, and just my engagements and my dealing with the Jehovah's Witnesses here locally, I've only dealt with a select few, but I know a few of those that have done sort of have gone into college and all that, especially the younger ones. So yeah, there were some of them who were even giving me hugs and all that and saying, "Oh, you also from UJ, which is the University of Johannesburg," and all that. And I was actually quite surprised, because I thought they sort of dissuaded people from attending universities and further education and all that. So that was a bit of a surprise for me. But I know that globally it's quite a thing that people just don't pursue higher education, especially after high school. It's like that's pretty much done and dusted, and they either have to go towards Bethelite, or so in becoming Bethelites, which is one of their headquarters, and I don't know if I can call it one of their monasteries or something like that, something of the sort, because they don't even call themselves a church, by the way. So whatever Bethel is that. And secondly, the other route is the preaching works, which they call pioneering. So that's exactly what they want to do. So in other words, they want you to cut out the whole educational system so that you take in the propaganda machine, and meaning that you are reading all their literature, and that is manufactured by the Watchtower Press. So that is all that they actually just about, as far as they call it feeding the flock, or they even say some terms called the giving out of these, I don't know, what's it called again? Spiritual food. There we go. They're giving out of the spiritual food. I don't know how I blanked on that, but yeah, just to show you that this is not exactly the spiritual food that is served by the Most High God, but the one of the that they actually serve it's Satan's organization, all in all. But effectively, like I said, that we are seeing the winding down, or winding up, I should say, of this whole Jehovah's Witnesses cult. And the more changes that's happening, the more this is just going to be a thing of the past. And once they've done in terms of selling all their kingdom halls, that effectively what I saw, that the one that was closest to me is it will end up being a Catholic church, just like any other Catholic church. So that is the main emphasis of this. However, there is the fact that when it gets to 2027, that they are going to be sacrificing people, and more so their congregational members, to Satan. So unfortunately, if people are not heeding the truth, and I've given out the fact that, in 2027, is that they're going to be calling the night of Purim the Passover, which is not the Passover. Purim and the Passover are two different things. And remember, on the Passover is when they normally have their memorial. But in 2027, they're going to be hosting the memorial on the night of Purim, but they're still going to call it the Passover. Now, I've already discussed this ad nauseum, but I have to repeat this because there's always new people and new members pretty much who check out the show, and people who are not up to speed with the material that I disperse and I've been given by the Holy Spirit. So to rewind and give a perspective, in 2024, which is just last year, they actually did that whole thing where on the night of Purim, they had the memorial and said it was the Passover. That was the dishonoring of the Passover. And then if you also recall that I had that whole dream and then subsequent vision that came in, and it was about this angel that is going in. And it was pretty much the angel of death sort of situation. And then I, not knowing why I had to go to the Jehovah's Witnesses just before the actual Passover, and because I'm expecting that, hang on, there might be some drama. But nothing happened as a result, because I was there on just going on faith and obedience, and I was praying that nothing happens, and nothing actually was going to happen, because it was like pretty much the evening just before the Passover actually was about to begin. So yeah, I went back home trying to decipher what is actually going on and everything, and I'm monitoring all of this. And I understood now what this meant, that, okay, well, that was just an intercession on my part, and I was sent in unknowingly to that. Secondly, this 2027 is another timeline now. They're waiting, they're pretty much saying, okay, well, 2025, they're going to keep it the same way as it always was, with the night of the Passover and having the memorial then instead of Purim. And then they're going to do that once again 2026 as per normal. Night of the Passover is still the memorial. But 2027 is when they're going to revert back to the Purim and the dishonoring of the Passover. So it's already noted. It's already on their calendars. You can already check that out. It's something that's, you can see if I'm lying or whatever. Just go check that out. And even what happened in 2024, it's already in the past. You can see what has happened. And I'm telling you, I'm like, that time, I don't think there's anything I can do, because the dishonoring of the Passover is something that is going to happen. And by that, remember what I also saw in that whole vision and that whole dream and everything, was the fact that the governing body members just dispersed and just ran away when this angel came in and was started, and there were people screaming in the kingdom halls and everything. So please, people, just understand that there's something very evil that these people have just are leading their flock to. They're already leading them to their deaths. So even with their phony Jesus, and ultimately when they go towards the Catholicism, it's going to be, of course, the one that is the second beast, known as the false prophet, who is the actual main false messiah that's deceiving the whole world, and not just the one that's deceived by certain flocks or everything. So there is that one that's going to be hyped up, who was already a previous US president who we've discussed on this podcast. Just mark my words and just monitor that. And again, take it very, very seriously. I do also say that check out everything else that I've pretty much put on over here on this podcast, and of course on the YouTube channels, and just to see what is actually it's all leading to down the line, that there is a greater evil, or great evil that they've already committed, that is behind all these changes that you are seeing in the Watchtower. It's nothing just, I'm saying, just coincidental. It's all going down to a certain thing of, we've already seen how they flip real estate and sell things, and they don't really care what happens to the congregational members. They don't care that people have already died to their blood doctrine. They don't really care what happens to you past you having to push their little agenda and recruiting people. And that's all it is about them. They use people, then they sacrifice them to Satan. And fortunately, that's the perpetual cycle that it's always been. And now, and I just say as a disclaimer, I've never been a Jehovah's Witnesses or a Jehovah's Witness. In fact, I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, right? So that was not something I had planned to do, but God had ideas saying that, listen, this is what He needs me to do, and I studied with them, and subsequently they did try and get me in, but of course, you know what? No, if God is calling me, I'll say, no, listen, we've gone far enough. That's as far enough as it went. So that's all I'm saying to you guys. There's no real agenda on my part in this regard. So just keep your eyes on this and keep a pulse on this whole development that we are about to unfold. Don't be surprised that you'll start hearing. And by the way, now that I'm here, that as far as the changes in the next material and the new light, watch out for the one that is going to be about the worship to Mother Mary. That one is going to happen. So that is the one that's going to be indicative, and that is the one that's going to actually lead to the biggest, I think, as far as people who are actually leaving, because people are already leaving in their droves, apparently. But on that one, it's going to be like a pretty much irrecoverable, where people are going to be leaving this cult. And it's going to be like this mass exodus, which is pretty much similar to the one that happened in the 70s. I think that's the one that's going to come next before this whole that whole angel of death thing. I don't know when exactly it's going to happen, of course, but I've been teasing it because they've been looking at launching new teachings and all this. That one is coming. The one about the worship to Mother Mary is coming, and that's when you know that it's pretty much done deal that this is going to be just another Catholic church at the time. So I think what will probably happen is that they will coincide that with the whole Purim thing in 2027. So let's not be too shocked if it happens at the end of 2026 and just the beginning of 2027, just before that whole night of Purim thing and that transitional period. I guess that perhaps maybe that's when it'll happen. Anyway, I will be back with the main segment of the show just after this.